Okay, so now that your t-shirt or your knit block is done, you need the sleeve to go with it. So I'm going to show you to make the sleeve matching with your knit block. For that, you're going to need another piece of cardboard. You need at least the length of the full sleeve, and I'm going to ask you to fold your cardboard in two. Could use a push pin to trace your line, and it's going to be much easier for the folding. So to start, you're going to need the full length of the sleeve. Usually for basic size 10, the full sleeve is 58 centimeter. So you're going to mark the 58 centimeter right on the board. You decide which side you want to work, and let's say this is going to be my top sleeve, and I want you to square at the bottom. This is your wrist. Okay, so you have to do a little calculation, and you have to decide which angle is going to have your sleeve. The more down you go for the sleeve, the more fitted it's going to be at the bicep level. The more straight you do your sleeve, the looser is going to be your sleeve. So you could decide the angle looking at your block and looking at a 90 degree like that. So you could say, I'm going to do my sleeve very straight or very close to the body. So that's going to give you, so by pivoting like that, you go with another 90 degree touching the underarm point. So just like that with a 90 degree. And depending on how you move your square, it's going to give you the sleeve head you need for your construction. In that case, I have pretty much 14 centimeter. So we'll try with 14 centimeter. You could try it with my measurement, and if you feel it's not tight enough, your sleeve at the bicep, you redo it. It's very simple. So when you get your sleeve head measurement, in that case I said 14. So you mark for 14 from the top of the sleeve, and you square a line from that 14. After that, you're going to need your armhole measurement. So I have 21.3 and I have 21.4. So you add them up. I get 42.7 and divided by 2 to have 2 parts even, because most of the sleeve is perfectly even on both sides. So I get 21.35, very little difference. And you take this measurement, 21.35, you place it starting 0 on the top point. So 21.35. And when your measurement reach the bicep line, so my 21.35 reached the bicep trace. For the bottom of the sleeve, the wrist, you could use a measuring tape, or if you don't have, you just use a little piece of leftover cardboard, and you check the measurement of your wrist, how tight you want it. And you're going to use half of this measurement. Remember, it's stretchy, so it could be exactly like your arm. It could even be tight. You're going to use this half measurement for the bottom of the sleeve. So this is my wrist. To trace the underarm, the under sleeve, the seam, what I suggest you do is starting from the underarm point, and to trace, just keep it a little bit inside. In that case, I put my ruler about 5 millimeters inside, and I'm going to trace almost to the end. the last third of this the line, I'm going to start shifting my ruler until I reach the final point, just to soften your line. You could also, when this part is done, you could already put your seam allowance on the underarm, and usually hem for knit they're 2 to 2.5 centimeter. There's my little jug, and you could cut already because all that part is the same for back and front. Okay, so this part is finished. We just have to trace the sleeve head properly, so I'm going to ask you to just do a little hole at the intersection of the sleeve head and the bicep line to get it, and open your pattern so you have exactly the same point on the other side, and you're going to trace also the same reference line. Okay, so what we have to do now is decide which side is going to be front and which side is going to be back. For example, my front and my back. Okay, so front, to make the curve, you divide it by highs in 4, and you're going to curve first quarter up 1 centimeter, last quarter down 1 centimeter, and when you trace, you connect the point touching the middle point. Up for the first one and down for the last one. The back one, you're going to divide it by highs also in 3. At the first mark from the top, you go about 1.5 up, and between the last mark and the end, you're going to go down about 5-7 millimeter. Your line is going to touch to the second third. So connecting the dot. The last thing you have to do is place your notch. So from the block, you could do it by pivoting, but this one doesn't have seam allowance yet. You could do it by pivoting on your new line, and just go put your double notch in the back. Same thing for the front. You could go by pivoting if you have both the seam allowance, and you place your front armhole notch. You need one last notch on top to match the shoulder line of the bodice. If you remember, my back was 1 millimeter bigger, so in fact the middle notch would be half a millimeter towards the front. It's half the difference towards the smallest side, so you won't be able to see. Half a millimeter is too small. So your sleeve block is done. You could now make it short, but the block should be long like that. Thank you for watching. If you have any question, let me know. It'll be a pleasure to answer.